From the combined newsrooms of KARK4 and Fox 16, breaking news coverage. And now, from the combined newsrooms of KARK4 and Fox 16, breaking news coverage.
Hello and good afternoon to you. I'm Mitch McCoy here at KARK4 and Fox 16. We are following breaking news. At least a couple hundred Trump supporters have lined up at the Arkansas State Capitol. This is a protest that's been happening now for about an hour. As this crowd gathers, you see our photographer there moving the camera around and repositioning. This all happening at the same time that the electoral college votes are being
from that
counted.
state.
Let's listen into a little bit from, it looks like this is Vice President Mike Pence as this rally is unfolding at the Arkansas Capitol.
To appoint or ascertain electors. For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia rise?
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Vice President. In order to follow with the Speaker's instructions that only a limited number of people be on the floor, may I ask how one would make an objection or make a parliamentary inquiry in the future if you're not on the floor but in the gallery?
Title III of the United States Code, debate is not permitted in the joint session.
The parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Vice President. I am not attempting to debate. I'm not attempting to debate. I'm trying to find out how a parliamentary inquiry or a parliamentary point of order would be made in following with the Speaker's request that most of us not be on the floor. How do you make one of those points of order when you don't know what's going to happen later?
Respectfully.
Yes, sir.
The gentleman's parliamentary inquiry constitutes debate, which is not permitted in the joint session under Section 18 of Title III, United States Code. With that, Mr. Blunt. Microphone needs to be on.
Is this mic on?
Yeah. Is my statement out?
Yes, sir, it is.
Thank you.
Try again. It's not on.
Mr. President, do you think this is on?
I don't believe it's on.
It's not on.
Try it one more time.
Okay, you've been watching live pictures from Washington, D.C., where this electoral college is happening right now. While we stand by and we closely monitor these live pictures, we will continue to bring that to you. But I want to get right now to our Jay Burr. He is standing by live right now at the Arkansas State Capitol, where there is now a rally underway. Jay, it looks like we've lost your backpack shot there. We might be getting it back right now as our photographers reposition. But tell me what's happening right now at the Arkansas State Capitol.
Well, yeah, Mitch, kind of what we're seeing right now here is, let me kind of pan over just a little bit here. Maybe I can get a better picture for you guys there. Oh, Ross is back up and running here. So, but yeah, what we're seeing is we've got some speakers, you know, a lot of preaching going on, if you will, a lot of calls for support of President Trump and Vice President Mike Pence. There really hasn't been a call to any sort of action, though, and it seems like some of the speakers out here have even said, you know, they don't really know what to do at this point because the process is kind of played out. So it's really not so much a protest out here as we've seen in the past for things like this, but it's more of a rally, kind of like you mentioned there. But we're seeing just calls for supporting President Trump, for praying for President Trump, pray for the country, you know, the Patriots rally together kind of thing. And you know, it's a lot of, it just feels like a lot of just aggression and steam being let off.
Jay, is there any way? I'm having a little bit of difficulty hearing you. I don't know if you're right next to a speaker.
Rallies were more fun than Silver Dollar City. I just thought it was.
Yeah, how about now there, Mitch?
Yeah, that works a little bit better. Sorry about that.
But yeah, it's just a scene out here. A couple hundred folks. Again, just sort of rallying the troops, if you will. And again, no real calls to any sort of action right now, as it does seem to be that President-elect Joe Biden will be the next president of the United States. A lot of people out here who've spoken have sort of condemned that, saying that the election was stolen, that things are fraudulent, but no real evidence to that. So it does seem like just a lot of disappointed folks in the election, just kind of letting off some steam, if you will.
So I'm interested in knowing, are these folks monitoring what's happening in Washington, D.C.? We saw the Electoral College votes out on the floor there. We see Vice President Mike Pence, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Do they know that this process has started in D.C. yet?
They have been kind of keeping up with it. I mean, nobody's mentioned it specifically. And in fact, when we first arrived on scene, they were playing some of President Trump's rally. They just kind of had their phones hooked up, and they were letting folks listen to that, him speaking at his rally up there in D.C. But yeah, I'm pretty sure like most people are aware of what's going on. They know what today brings. There has been several mentionings of the Georgia Senate runoff. That they're still clinging on to hope that maybe Purdue can pull that race off. That way they can Republicans can maintain control of the Senate. But as of right now, that race still too close to call. But Ossoff does have the lead currently in that race. So there is a little bit of pessimism when it comes to that realization of, you know, their candidate has lost. The other ones that they were pulling for have lost. So again, it just does seem like sort of a venting session, if you will. And again, there's been no calls to action other than maybe future actions of rallying the troops, supporting the candidates that you support. And
okay, we briefly lost Jay Burr. We will attempt to get him back as soon as we possibly can. If the newsroom can let him know as well that we've lost his shot. We are working right now to get that shot reestablished as we monitor some of these live pictures from the Arkansas State Capitol. And just to give you a big picture perspective here to what's happening, our photographer is repositioning. This is a live shot that our photographer has out there, so we are going to see the camera move every once in a while as our photographers work to try and get some of the best pictures possible from the Arkansas State Capitol, where this rally has been underway now for about an hour. And you're looking at pictures on the right-hand side of the screen. These are this is video that our crew captured earlier today as we stand by, and it looks like we have Jay Burr back. Jay, if you can kind of catch us up on what's happening at this moment outside the state capitol. It looks like there's more speakers up.
Yeah, there's a pretty good line of speakers. I mean, we've gone through probably about half a dozen at the very least right now. You know, and again, there's been only 2 elected officials that we've caught out here, and that's Representative Grant Smith out of the Jonesboro area, and then Representative Mary Bentley, kind of Pope County, Yell County, sort of that general area right there is her delegation area. But and other than that, it's just been folks kind of lined up kind of along the side of the, I guess you're looking at the Capitol, along the right side here. And the other thing is, and we kind of expected this, but I don't know if you can kind of see behind me here. I'll try to, you know, you got the front facing camera, you can only do so much, but you have some guys out here, some pretty big guns. We've also seen some riot shields out here. I'm not sure if that's just kind of what they do, or if they had thought that there was going to be some sort of, you know, counter protesting, or some folks that are against what they're about out here. We haven't seen any of that out here, any pro-Biden or anti-Trump sentiments out here. So it's been a fairly uneventful event, if you will. I mean, aside from just sort of the raucous cheers and everything that's going on here, but nothing outside of the rally itself.
You said there were some riot shields, also some guns. What are we seeing from a law enforcement perspective out there?
Yeah, Capitol Police out here strong. They kind of are spread throughout the event right here. They also have a new sort of utility vehicle that they just got in yesterday. In fact, we saw them up here yesterday, sort of taking pictures, doing the social media thing with it, and that's been driving around. We've also seen some police officers, some of the Little Rock Police Department driving around in unmarked cars. I did also notice, I think it was one of the Pulaski County sheriffs also in unmarked cars. So there's a heavy presence. They've just kind of been patrolling just the general area here, not necessarily right out here on the front steps, but going behind the Capitol, the sort of the couple of blocks radius from the Capitol as well, even around our building, which is just across the street from the Capitol here. So there's a heavy police presence out here, but they're not necessarily making it known. And I think they're doing that just to try to rile people up.
Sure. And if you're just joining us here, we are following this rally that is at the Arkansas State Capitol, and the video that you're seeing on the in the middle of the screen. For some reason, we continue to have some issues with that video. If the newsroom is watching, if we can try and figure out exactly what's happening there. But we're having some issues bringing that video into the system here. Jay, what do you foresee happening over the next hour? I mean, do you think that this crowd is going to grow? Have you been seeing this crowd grow over the last hour?
As long as we also
not substantially. I mean, we've seen some people walking up from down Capitol Avenue here, Capitol Boulevard, but there have been some people kind of coming to and fro. But again, we haven't seen large swells of people or anything like that showing up. There's not a whole lot of places to park out here, so I think that's maybe part of why that crowd has grown a whole lot more. But you know, there are some cars buzzing around, and again, even from the cars buzzing around, we haven't seen a lot of, you know, anti-sentiments to what is going on here.
Jay, stand by. I want to go to, if we can, I want to go to Washington, D.C., where the Electoral College votes could be counted here at any minute. Let's listen in live, and we will continue to monitor those pictures from the state capitol. Okay, it looks like we took that just a little early. We are monitoring these live pictures as the Electoral College votes will be counted here soon. You know, Jay, this is certainly a moment here in history, especially as we watch these live pictures from Washington, D.C., where the Electoral College votes will be counted, as we also stand by and watch these live pictures from right here in Little Rock, where this rally has now been underway. Any word on Biden supporters? Are there any counter protesters there?
No, other than a couple of cars that have driven by, kind of trying to incite the crowd. There really hasn't been a presence of Joe Biden supporters or just even anti-Trump supporters. I mean, we've seen some people driving by with their phones out trying to take some video. Some people, you know, kind of shaking their heads in their cars. But really, aside from that, it's been pretty tame in terms of, you know, anything outside the event, which appears to be kind of wrapping up right now. We're seeing a lot of folks starting to file out here. So maybe we're putting a bow on this thing here as we've gone through probably about a dozen speakers or so just in the past hour and a half. Just, again, sort of giving their take on what they think about the current situation and what they think people ought to do.
How many people would you say total have been at the Capitol this morning?
At least a good solid couple hundred. I mean, now everybody hasn't been packed in to the Capitol steps and sort of right out front here. I mean, we've seen some people mulling about sort of across the street here in one of the adjacent parking lots. People have just been kind of walking around a little bit. So, I mean, maybe about 200 or 300, give or take.
as we stand by, I want to take the live pictures from Washington, D.C. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi now speaking. Let's see if we can listen in live.
Recognition for debate. Members must also practice proper social distancing when present in the chamber. Let the record show that there is a gross violation of this guidance from the attendants on the Republican side of the aisle. Please, in the interest of your own health and as an example to the American people, abide by the numbers, now up to 25 on each side of the aisle, to participate in this stage of the development. Okay? Pursuant to Senate Concurrent Resolution 1, and Section 17 of Title 3 of the United States Code, when the two houses withdraw from the joint session to count the electoral vote for separate consideration of an objection, a representative may speak to the objection for 5 minutes and not more than once. Debate shall not exceed 2 hours, after which the chair will put in the question, shall the objection be agreed to? The clerk will report the objection made in the joint session.
Objection to counting the electoral votes of the state of Arizona. We, a member of the House of Representatives and a United States Senator, object to the counting of the electoral votes of the state of Arizona on the ground that they were not, under all of the known circumstances, regularly given. Signed, Paul Gosar, Representative, State of Arizona. Ted Cruz, Senator, State of Texas.
Thank you.
And so now they're going through the formalities here, and now you can start to hear some states objecting to the Electoral College votes as we are monitoring these live pictures on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen from the Arkansas State Capitol. Let's go to those pictures live right now. This has been the scene throughout the morning. We have seen supporters of President Trump line up at the Arkansas State Capitol and rally at the Capitol. Throughout the morning, we have heard from speakers, including some lawmakers. It looks like we have a state capitol police officer talking with some of the protesters out there right now. It looked like a peaceful conversation. We have seen people with riot shields and weapons there, but there have not been any reported issues from the Arkansas State Capitol this morning. You can still see a fairly large crowd out there. Our Jay Burr has been standing by there throughout the morning, and he estimated a couple hundred people maybe at the state capitol as we start to see movement in Washington, D.C. related to the Electoral College votes and its certification. There have not been any issues. Our Jay Burr telling us earlier today that he has seen some supporters of President-elect Biden outside the Capitol as well, and driving around with Biden flags. Let's see if we can listen in live right now to just some of the sound out at the state Capitol. I do not think that there's any speakers right now. Throughout the morning, they have had audio from a President Trump, as President Trump was speaking earlier today in Washington, D.C. Let's listen in live.
All right, guys. What I said was on January 16th, we are doing a bit.
And it doesn't sound like there's any kind of speaker right now at the state capitol where this rally has been underway for some time. And throughout the morning, we have seen people with Trump flags. We've seen people with megaphones and speakers. You see a Trump flag right there. Let's see if we can listen in live here. It looks like protesters are now on the steps. Yeah, no active speakers right now, but this has been, there's been some movement from the Capitol. They were on the steps to the big bronze doors that are there at the Capitol, but it doesn't look like they are anymore. Jay Burr telling us moments ago that it looked like most of the folks were going to be leaving, and that was before the Electoral College vote in Washington, D.C. Earlier today, they did have audio from President Trump as President Trump was speaking at a rally in Washington, D.C. this morning, but President Trump, that rally has wrapped up, so they turned that audio off. For right now, it appears that people are just socializing out there and talking. You see folks also wearing body armor out there. You see the gentleman there on the left. We have seen that throughout the morning. Individuals wearing body armor, riot shields, and armed with guns, but no issues from the Arkansas State Capitol today as protesters, folks that are out supporting President Trump are at the state capitol. This all happening as we are seeing this in Washington, D.C., the Electoral College being counted, and people right now objecting to the counting of the Electoral College. Several lawmakers, we just heard from a representative from Arizona saying that Arizona was going to be objecting to the Electoral College certification. And you're now looking at pictures. Full right now is in Washington, D.C., that debate happening. On the bottom right-hand corner, you have live pictures from downtown Little Rock, where the rally has been happening now for a little more than an hour and a half. We started getting word at about 10:30, 10:45 that there were folks out at the state capitol that were gathering. Let's listen in live just for a moment in Washington, D.C. We're going to continue to monitor these live pictures from Little Rock, where protesters are at the state capitol. But let's listen in live now to Washington, D.C.
Not behind closed doors, not smoke-filled rooms, not bullying somebody that might give you a better ruling. Let's get back to rule of law and follow the Constitution, Madam Speaker, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman's time has expired. For what purpose does the gentlewoman It's over now. I thought it was Jamie. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from California seek recognition?
To strike the last word.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for
Madam
5
Speaker,
minutes.
Madam Speaker, this day marks a crossroads for American democracy. Those who object to the counting of the Electoral College votes, which reflect the votes of the American people, want to substitute their preferences for the voter's choice. That's not what our Constitution requires, and it's at odds with the American Democratic Republic. If Congress selects the next president instead of American voters, we'll have no need for an electoral college. In fact, we'd have no need for presidential elections at all. We'd be moving from a government elected by the people to a government selected by those already governing. That's not America. In the United States, we abide by the choices of the people, not an elite few. The framers of our Constitution considered whether to have Congress select the president and specifically rejected it. Instead, they wrote Article 2 and the 12th Amendment. Article 2 creates the Electoral College, where each state appoints electors. Laws of all 50 states and D.C. require electors to vote for the winner of the state's popular election. Each state provides for the orderly conduct of elections, including lawful challenges, recounts, and the like. The 12th Amendment is what brings us to today. It says the electors meet in their states. That happened December 14th. The amendment says the electors shall cast their votes, sign and certify them, transmit them to a seal. That's been done. The sealed envelopes containing the signed, certified ballots from each state's electors, reflecting the votes of the people, were in those mahogany boxes. The 12th Amendment directs the President, as the Vice President, as the President of the Senate, to do only this: open the sealed envelopes, and then the vote shall be counted. Simple. It doesn't say counted in a manner that some members of Congress or the Vice President might prefer. No. The votes are simply to be counted as certified and transmitted by the states. During Reconstruction after the Civil War, more than one slate of electors were appointed by states. Dueling lists were sent and protracted processes were undertaken in presidential elections, and as a result, To make an orderly process, Congress enacted the Electoral Count Act of 1887. This law governs our proceedings today. The act provides dispute resolution mechanisms. Under the ECA, if a governor certifies a slate of electors and there are no competing slates from that state, the governor's certified slate must be counted. Today, every single slate of electors won by Joe Biden or won by Donald Trump got their governor's certification. Not a single state submitted a competing slate. There's no dispute to resolve.
You're listening right now to lawmakers in Washington, D.C. They are talking about the Electoral College. Moments ago, congressional Republicans objected to the election tally in Arizona. What does that mean? It's now forcing votes in the House and the Senate on President-elect Joe Biden's victory in the state. As we know that the GOP, for some time, we knew that there was a lot of potential that the GOP was going to be objecting to the election results. That has now happened in Washington, D.C. We're going to continue to monitor those live pictures. I want to go now to this, and this was video from the rally at the Arkansas State Capitol earlier this morning. You see the text up there moments ago. This is video that our crew has been capturing throughout the morning as this crowd just grew by several hundred within just the matter of an hour or so in Little Rock. And this is outside at the Arkansas State Capitol. Now let's go to live pictures from outside the state capitol. I'm trying to get an idea on where this is at. This looks like this might be right on the front steps of the Capitol. I'm having a hard time telling. It looks like that might be the Victory Building in the distance there, and it looks like people are starting to wrap up and leave. I'm not hearing any sound from the state capitol, but that was, these are live pictures that you're looking at right now. It doesn't look like there's much of a crowd anymore, but moments ago there was, and that's the video that I've been showing you right here from earlier today. You see people on the steps of the state capitol as protesters rally in support for President Trump. We did earlier today see people at this rally. They had loudspeakers out there and they had audio from President Trump as President Trump was speaking in Washington, D.C. earlier today. They were listening to his speech near the White House, and they had that audio and they had patriotic music playing. Also this morning at the Arkansas State Capitol, there's a state lawmaker speaking as well, but it looks like things are starting to wrap up on the steps of the state capitol as the Electoral College starts to be counted. And we now have an objection in Washington, D.C. The GOP has objected the election results, now forcing votes in the House and the Senate on President-elect Joe Biden's victory in the state. So certainly a lot of twists and turns in Washington, D.C. This was well expected leading up to today as the Electoral College votes are being certified. Let's listen in live to Washington, D.C.
31st, 2016, before he was elected the first time, Jim Comey's FBI takes out the insurance policy, opens an investigation on the president based on nothing. May 17th, 2017, Bob Mueller named special counsel. 2 years, they investigate the Russia hoax. 19 lawyers, 40 agents, and $40 million of taxpayer money for nothing. December 18th, 2019, Democrat House members vote to impeach President Trump based on an anonymous whistleblower with no firsthand knowledge who was biased against the president and who worked for Joe Biden. But none of that worked. As hard as they tried, none of that worked. They threw everything they had at him. So what did they do next? They changed the rules. They changed the election law, and they did it in an unconstitutional fashion. And that's what we're going to show over the next several hours of debate. The Constitution is clear, as Whip Scalise just said. State legislatures, and only state legislatures, set election law. In Arizona, The law says voter registration ends on October 5th. Democrats said, we don't care what the law says. They went to a court, got an Obama-appointed judge to extend it 18 days. No debate, as Steve talked about. No debate, no discussion, he just did it. Pennsylvania, same thing. Pennsylvania law says mail-in ballots have to be in by 8 p.m. Election Day. Democrat Supreme Court said, nope, we're going to extend it. Election Day doesn't end on Tuesday now. They took it to Friday. Extended the election 3 days. Not the legislature, partisan Supreme Court. Pennsylvania law says mail-in ballots require signature verification. Democrat Secretary of State said, nope, I'm going to decide by myself that it doesn't. For 2.6 million ballots. Pennsylvania law says mail-in ballots can't be processed until Election Day. Some counties said no. And you can imagine which counties they were. Democrat-run counties said no and allowed ballots to be cured and fixed before Election Day. They did an in-run around the Constitution in every state that Republicans will object to today. Every single one. It was a pattern. It was their template. They did it in Arizona. They did it in Georgia. They did it in Michigan. They did it in Pennsylvania. They did it in Nevada. They did it in Wisconsin. And yet some members say, don't worry about it. We shouldn't do anything. Just let it go. It was just 6 states who violated the Constitution. What if it's 10 states the next time? What if it's 15? What if in 2024, 2028, it's 26 states? What if it's half the states do an end run around the Constitution clearly spells out? We are the final check and balance. The authority rests with us, the United States Congress, the body closest to the American people, right where the founders wanted it. We should do our duty. We should object to and vote for this objection to the Arizona electors. Madam Chair, I yield back.
Thank you. Purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I rise in opposition to the objection.
The gentleman is recognized without objection for 5 minutes.
Madam Speaker, a little more than 2 months ago, America performed an extraordinary feat. Under some of the most trying circumstances in our history, our fellow citizens conducted a free and fair election, vindicating our founders' belief once again that we were capable of self-government and a peaceful transition of power. On November 3rd, the American people chose Joe Biden to be their next president by an enormous margin. The successful conduct of that election, among the most secure in American history, was not an accident. It was the result of the dedicated work of thousands of volunteers, canvassers, poll workers, electors, and state and local election officials. When the conduct of any state election was challenged, the courts, through judges appointed by Democrats and those appointed by Republicans, heard unsubstantiated claims of fraud, found they had no merit, and said so. But most important, the American people persevered. In the midst of the worst pandemic in a century, America had one of the most impressive elections in a century with historic voter turnout. Our fellow citizens did their civic duty. The question we face today is, will we do ours? That we are here with a substantial number of our members seeking to overturn an election is remarkable, tragic, and all too predictable. For it is the natural result of a locomotive set in motion months ago with a myth. For weeks and weeks before, during, and after our election, a dangerous falsehood was propagated that our election would be marred by massive fraud. Never mind, it was the same election which brought the very men and women to this chamber who would challenge its results. What value has consistency when measured against ambition? A former senator from Georgia, remarking on a contested election over a century ago, said that able men, learned men, distinguished men, great men in the eyes of the nation seemed intent only on accomplishing a party triumph without regard to the consequences to the country. That is human nature, That is, he said, unfortunately, party nature. Was he right? We stand in a house which was once the place of giants. Have we become so small? Does our oath to uphold the Constitution,
we are going to continue to monitor these live pictures out of Washington, D.C. At this hour as the counting of the Electoral College votes gets underway. There is already one objection, and that is from the state of Arizona. Stay with KRK4, stay with Fox 16 and News Nation as we continue to monitor these developments closely out of Washington, D.C. We'll have streams both on our website and right here on Facebook and all of our social media platforms throughout the day. If there are more developments at the Arkansas State Capitol, we will bring you those events live right here across all of our social media platforms. For now, I'm Mitch McCoy. I hope you have a good afternoon.